Hi, I am Alok, and I'm your host at Fitero. Welcome to Fitness Pro Chat, the podcast by Fitero.
Welcome to Fitness Pro Chat by Fit Aerobic. If you're looking to improve your health and well-being to lead a healthy, fit, and fulfilling life, whether you're an amateur or a professional athlete, this podcast is for you. Now, on to the show.
Welcome to the second part of the podcast on gut. Let's continue our discussion with Janvi Chitalia, an integrative gut microbiome health coach and functional medicine nutritionist based in Mumbai, India. She champions in designing dietary interventions that can help in reversal of medical conditions through optimal nutrition. We will discuss about the gut-brain connection, why weight management is important for people with autoimmune disease, and learn about how we can keep our gut healthy. You can listen to the first part of this podcast, which talked about food sensitivity, allergies, and misconceptions that exist around gut health on your favorite platforms. Let's begin this discussion with Janvi. Welcome to the show, Janvi.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alok. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Earlier, we used to sit together and have a hearty laugh and enjoy the food as a family. Today, obviously, given the kind of stress and everything around in city life, it becomes very difficult to connect with the food the way we should, and probably that's causing a lot of challenge with our bodies and then the way we are taking it. How exactly? I mean, a person would recognize whether they are having an unhealthy gut, and can an unhealthy gut lead to any autoimmune disease? Because obviously that's very important. Another super important topic that we see coming up these days. So how exactly that works?
So first of all, I'll break down autoimmune condition because I'm sure there may be a lot of people who need to know more about what it is.
True.
But before that, today to really draw attention, they're saying that they're probably predicting over a period of the next few years that autoimmune diseases are going to become the number one reason for mortality over heart disease and cancer, and that's the rate at which it's growing. Now, autoimmune conditions literally are coming from nothing but we spoke about the food intolerances. It comes from chronic amounts of inflammation in the body. When it's like, again, I said that when you keep eating the foods that you don't tolerate well, you're creating something called, so I'll just like explain that there's something called a tight junction. So your gut is one cell layered thick, but it is really, really strong. And when you have these tight junctions, they literally, it's like the junctions of your intestine are very, very tightly sealed. Over a period of time, when you keep eating foods that you don't do well with, these tight junctions keep slowly opening, where there can be an interference of the food with the blood. Now, let me go back a little bit and say that if we all go back to a biology class, we'll remember that when you're looking at a digestive tract, it was like a hollow tube. And the blood was not interacting. The blood was outside and the digestive tract was there. So when you're looking at these tight junctions coming through, you can imagine that the food that you're eating is interacting with the blood that's outside, and you're causing something called a leaky gut or an intestinal permeability. Now that is 100% precursor that you would need for any autoimmune condition to show up. Now, autoimmune conditions cannot happen without intestinal permeability, which normally like conditions like rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune condition. We're talking about a lot of people are still doing research about whether endometriosis is, and there is Meniere's disease, there is adult onset still disease, a lot of different kinds of autoimmune conditions, psoriasis, all of these are different presentations, Hashimoto's, Graves. They all are when the body basically is attacking its own self. It could be any organ. For thyroid, people who have a Hashimoto's, the body is attacking the thyroid like it doesn't recognize the gland anymore. It's basically attacking its own tissue and causing antibodies to it. So that typically, and we've seen that in 90% of the cases, even a Hashimoto's is actually when people have a high thyroid, doctors don't test for Hashimoto's, and 90% of them are actually positive for Hashimoto's long before they were positive for a high thyroid or a high TSH. So what we really need to look at primarily is that for an unhealthy gut, when you're looking at all of these things, you need to tie it down to simple things. Every single symptom in the body in many different ways could point towards gut imbalance. It doesn't have to only be related to your stomach. So today, anything from having like a morning runny nose to having migraines or having headaches or cluster stress headaches, or to having something like having acne, a lot of people having hair fall. All of these can connect back to the gut, like malabsorption of certain nutrients, toxin overload in the body. Then you could also look at things like joint pain, stiffness. All of these can also again connect back to, and talking about specifically these symptoms because they're not just digestive related, but all of these can again count back to having a lot of fatigue, feeling tired all the time, irrespective of how many hours you're sleeping. Feeling like there's some amount of brain fog, you're not as attentive as you were before, or maybe having rashes or thrush on the skin, or feeling like a kind of a itchiness, that kind of skin presentation as well, having a lot of heat boils on the skin as well. All of these things can again, having a lot of hormonal issues, having estrogen dominance, having water retention, any of these things can also connect back to having an unhealthy gut. So essentially, when you're looking at aspects which overall, when you see symptoms, it's important to check that they may be actually not just coming from a superficial issue. Like today, when you see water retention, people will say, okay, go check your thyroid. But if after you're checking your thyroid, are you actually checking for Hashimoto's? Are you checking for your gut imbalance or not? Is equally important, because you're just putting a band-aid on the water retention by saying, okay, you have thyroid, start a pill. Or you have water retention, maybe drink more water or reduce your sodium. But you're not changing the origin of where that issue is coming from. So, and that is when these things go without being checked for a very long time, it slowly and steadily leads to chronic inflammation, which can give rise to autoimmune conditions in the long run.
That was, absolutely brilliant that you explained in detail. And the next one, the question that I have is very much related to this. Especially, what we have seen is, or I would say, in certain cases, specifically someone who is autoimmune to certain diseases, their body is not responding. So they often find it very difficult to manage their weight as well. And anything specific, maybe women related, which you want to highlight? Why exactly it becomes very difficult to manage weight, especially when you have autoimmune disease, and how exactly what interventions can be done to take care of that condition?
So autoimmune conditions necessarily, first thing, like I said, the context of autoimmune conditions starts with inflammation. Today, an inflamed body cannot easily lose weight. What is inflammation? Inflammation is basically, so inflammation, let me come down and explain a little bit. Inflammation is basically your body's defense mechanism, and it is something that should be there. Like, I'll give you a simple example. Today, if a kid is running around and the kid falls and hurts his or her knee, and the kid starts bleeding, and then you clear it up, and you see that by the time, in maybe the next few minutes to a few hours, you'll see a little bit of inflammation or swelling around that area, which is the body's way of protecting itself. And inflammation is actually good, so we want that to happen. But what happens is, over a period of time, because of all the insults to injury that have been done to the body, you are looking at a chronically inflamed state of a body, where it's like the switch of the inflammation should actually go off after the process of defense is over. But when that switch is turned on and it is not put off, you're going to see a larger predisposition of any kind of a genetic expression. So I may have a genetic predisposition to, say, high blood pressure, or maybe high cholesterol in through my genetic predisposition as well. The more my inflammation levels are high, I may see that the chances of me showing those symptoms of my blood pressure or cholesterol not being managed will be much more likely in those cases, because of the environment is conducive for that kind of a show up of these conditions. So typically what you're looking at is that kind of an imbalance does occur when these issues happen. So now when it comes to weight, one very important aspect that I would like to highlight is, a lot of people today know about thyroid, they know about PCOD, they know about high insulin resistance can also lead to weight resistance, where people don't lose weight very easily. Leptin ghrelin balance to do with your satiety, and your hunger hormone also gets affected. But primarily today, what I want to talk about is very interesting, which I see a lots and lots of cases now, is estrogen dominance. In women today, we know that estrogen progesterone balance is important for overall periods and everything else, like a balance for a woman's reproductive health. Now, because people have for years and years, probably women don't realize, when they've had constipation, where constipation does not mean just not going to stool every day, but it means incomplete bowel evacuation. It could mean even going 4 to 5 times a day. It could mean even going once in 2 days. It could mean going only, even once in a day but not going satisfactorily. All of these are forms of constipation. And when you're doing that again and again to the system and you're not being able to clear a lot of toxins which are left in the system, like you keep eating your food every day, but there's so much of your bowel still in your large colon which is sitting waiting to move out. So when you are actually eating the food that your large colon does most, or your intestine does most of the absorption, you've absorbed back all the toxins from that stool which was waiting to be expelled from the system back into your circulation. And when you do that, you're causing a lot of endocrine disruptors, you're causing a lot of imbalances to go back into the system, and you could actually be reabsorbing back excess estrogen, which had been bound with the stool to come out. So you go back into a state of estrogen dominance, which can lead to you not losing weight easily, which can lead to a lot of tenderness, heaviness, and estrogen, insulin, all of these are more fat friendly hormones, or they kind of make it easier for the body to kind of store fat and not be able to move towards a higher metabolism. So that becomes essential, and it's almost like a like a game where you see like a ripple effect. When one drops, the other drops, then the other drops, and they all are connected. So today maybe you have estrogen dominance, 3 years later you've been detected with thyroid, you don't know how that happened, you don't have a family history, but clearly these are the connections that the body is made. So essentially, to detect that, the stomach needs to be very clear to avoid an estrogen dominance is very important. Food intolerances often also cause these issues in terms of inflammation. That also should be managed to manage the weight.
From there, I would say I want to move to the gut-brain connection, and you talked about it in one of the previous responses. How exactly our brain and gut is connected? And the obviously the gut is called the second brain, and so what exactly is this connection? Is it coming from the disruption that happens in the gut microbiome, or is it coming from an autoimmune disease, obviously coming again from gut microbiome? So everyone think boils down to one place, the gut. So what exactly it is, and how it affects the entire, I would say, entire lifestyle of any individual.
So primarily, yes, it's very true that the gut is called the second brain. Now, if we've known of people who probably have had any kind of a brain injury, a lot of people who've been in comatose for many years, you've seen that they are able to keep them alive for many years, even just by feeding them through a Ryle's tube, or by feeding them through a stomach tube. And why does that happen? Because you have the second brain that's still working. Because today, without your brain telling you that I need to eat this, how will you get the message that I'm supposed to be able to digest or absorb that food? So that is one of the biggest proofs of saying that the gut is the second brain. And even if your connection to your main, say your brain is cut, your body can survive in at least maybe not a fully active state, but that state where we've seen where people live for many, many years in that state is because there is an enteric nervous system, which you call the second brain, which is your gut, which has its own system of its own. So what we're really looking at is that your gut is talking to the brain every millisecond, and it's actually responding, and it's sharing all the information of all the stimuli and neurotransmitter reactions, the responses to the food that it sees, how it's reacting to it, how the immune system is reacting back to it. There's a constant dialogue happening between your gut and brain. I'm not going to get very technical because it's a very technical way to explain, and it'll take another hour to explain this. But what I'll say is, what happens is this happens through this beautiful nerve called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is what helps you connect this entire communication between your gut and brain. And this is like it's almost called like a wandering nerve, which kind of starts in the brain and ends in the gut. And what it typically does is every piece of this communication is sealed through that. Now, over a period of time, when we probably are very stressed, we're chronically stressed, we reduce the resilience of this vagus nerve. So I'm going to take a moment to share that suppose we all started, like I'll tell you, we all started gargling during the COVID time, right? Everybody's saying do hot water gargles, do turmeric gargles. So I'd like to share, there are about 2 ways or 3 ways, I'll share at least one or two, which are a way to strengthen this vagus nerve resilience, which is to keep the gut brain connection very, very strong. So one is to actually gargle to a point where you feel like, extreme amount of discomfort, like gargling to a point where you're almost screaming and gargling.
Yeah.
That kind of, so they say that the vagus nerve, if you want to stimulate new neural connections or pathways where the body can stimulate the vagus nerve and keep it strong, one way is to do that kind of gargling. Second is, if there are people who are also looking at, I don't know, a lot of people do take today when they've had chronic constipation. I know a lot of people who do enemas.
Yes.
So, when people do a kind of a colonic cleanse, you need to probably try, and even when you do a colonic cleanse, obviously when you put in a lot of water and force into the system, trying to hold for some time and then release that water also helps to create a little bit more vagus nerve resilience. So these are all like different ways to do that, which is a little different than what we've heard normally.
Yes.
But it's very important, like how you go to a gym and you strengthen a muscle, right? If you don't strengthen a muscle, you're not going to be able to lift that 15 kilo weight. So you can't expect these all systems to work endlessly and relentlessly without being strengthened. So to really strengthen your gut brain connection, it's very important that you kind of start picking out on one of these things to improve your gut resilience load, so that the communication between your gut brain axis stays very, very active.
I'm sure this is going to be quite useful for
Yeah.
everyone, in
Yeah,
fact,
absolutely.
including me.
Yes.
And so we would want to understand how exactly we can nourish our gut for optimal health. Because, I mean, ultimately we are coming to a conclusion, I would say, is everything starts with gut.
Absolutely.
Right? And so it's important to make it healthy or keep it healthy.
Yeah.
So how exactly we can make our guts healthy, and what are the interventions that are required in terms of food, maybe some specific food or supplementations that are
Yeah.
required to
Sure.
keep our gut healthy.
Absolutely.
If you could please highlight those.
Absolutely. So, yes, I would say Hippocrates was a very, very learned man. We all know it, who predicted many years back and,
Yes.
coined this line, this all disease begins in the gut. And I completely agree. I think I wish we'd all known it a lot earlier. So, or, really kind of at least worked on that statement. So
True.
essentially, when it comes to keeping your gut healthy, I think one very important thing that I would suggest is maybe looking at, like I said, number one is to incorporate more foods which are gut friendly. One is to definitely add more fiber. I think I've seen across the board when I meet my clients and I talk, my first question to them when they're explaining what they eat, trust me, my question every day, maybe 100 times, whenever I'm speaking to so many clients in the day, is what is the size of the bowl of vegetable that you eat? It's not about what vegetable you eat or whatever. Yeah, that's also important.
Yes.
But I ask them, what is the size? And typically, when I see people's plates, they'll say, this is the amount of roti that they're eating, this is the amount of vegetable they're eating, and this is the amount of dal or protein that they're eating. And the vegetable is always the ignored guy on the plate. And that is where the issues are. So fiber, insoluble fiber, soluble fiber, both are very important. So insoluble fiber will be all some of your fruits, vegetables, all of these things which are difficult for the body to digest. Soluble fiber will come maybe sometimes, there's apple, there's oats, there's barley.
Yes.
If you don't have intolerances to gliadin and gluten, you could even have them. Isabgol is another option as far as soluble fiber is concerned.
Okay.
So a mix of both these are very important, because the insoluble fiber, basically the bacteria in the gut ferment or rather work on the insoluble fiber and create something called short chain fatty acids, which creates something called butyric acid, which is very important for your gut. So if you're not having enough fiber, you are, rest assured, going to start having issues which are going to create imbalance in the gut. And we need the butyric acid for the nutrition of the probiotic strains in our gut as well. So we need to have good amount of fiber, not just as much, maybe about 25-30 grams at least in one. Like I would say that people say 40 grams in a day, I would say at least 20 grams at one time, especially lunch and dinner. And have a diversity of the vegetables you eat. As far as you're not intolerant to a particular vegetable, or like some people complain of having gas when they have like cabbage or cauliflower or broccoli, or even nightshades like brinjal or ladyfinger, or capsicum. They are also nightshades, which a lot of people can't tolerate with seeds, so you de-seed them and use them.
Yes.
But if you don't have that, then you want to try and use as much color on your plate
Yes.
and as much diversity. So that is, red, yellow, greens, all the colors, like a rainbow colored plate, right?
True.
As we would eat as children. So that is one. Another very favorite recommendation of mine is bone broth. Bone broth, which is specifically made more out of chicken bones. Again, for non-vegetarians, people love having that protein. That's the most purest form of taking good quality protein. It's essential that you have bone broth, which is cooked for at least on the slow cooker for 6 to 7 hours and leached out with some amount of lime or apple cider vinegar. So all the bones, all the important gelatin, all the nutrients are coming out. And this
Yes.
is one of the best ways to heal your gut lining. So when you have autoimmune conditions or a leaky gut condition, this will help to kind of seal. It's like the M seal for how you have a M seal for your basin.
Yes.
This is the M seal for your gut. Can't go wrong with it. So bone broth is another very favorite, like a food that I think people should definitely incorporate.
Okay.
And another very important thing, which I think is very ignored today, everybody talks about B12 and D3, but now another very important guy on the list is magnesium.
Okay.
Magnesium has a lot to do with the way your muscles contract, for the way you pass your stool. It has a very important effect on how calm your mind is. And today, more and more, we're seeing magnesium deficiency. Most people I see are magnesium deficient. So magnesium could be through, again, green leafy vegetables, could be through bananas. Eating foods which are rich in magnesium would also help really improve your gut health as well. So these three are my favorite. As far as supplements, if you want to consider that right now as well, definitely looking at a probiotic supplement, one which has a basic, maybe even a lactobacilli acidophilus or a bifidobacterium
Yes.
is very, very important. Like a basic. You could take a basic 2.5 billion CFU probiotic empty stomach and have it for a few days, or maybe try to incorporate. Even if you don't want to take a supplement, you can take something like a kombucha or a kefir. Today a lot of people are recognizing that they are important,
Yes.
to incorporate that, or maybe even 1 spoon of a homemade pickle, which is fermented pickle that our grandmoms used to make
absolutely,
with
yes.
less oil, less salt, can at least be a very small, simple way to integrate some amount of fermented food. Again, it's a contraindication for people who have SIBO, people who have very high acid reflux. It should be done with asking a gut nutritionist or a doctor or whatever.
Yes.
But otherwise, you can start with small quantities and see. Another favorite supplement of mine, which I think really definitely works very well, is trying to get your hands on something called a digestive bitter. A digestive bitter will help to increase your stomach acid and to improve your digestive fire. Often most people can't digest food very well because of years of taking antacids and things like that. Their stomach acid has actually got suppressed. So digestive bitters are available. They're a great option to have to slowly and steadily improve your stomach acid so that you can digest your food better. And when so it should break down to a puree like a baby food puree. If a food normally doesn't have, the stomach doesn't have enough acid, you won't be able to do that. So that's another important thing. And lastly, another favorite of mine would be something that you can use, which is anything like a collagen. A collagen again can be a substitute for people who don't want to take the effort for a bone broth.
Yeah.
A collagen is very widely used today by a lot of dermats for your hair,
Yes.
skin, for your bone joint matrix, for your connective tissue matrix. But it's very, very helpful again to heal your lining of your gut as well. So these three again are my favorites.
Quite insightful,
Yeah.
and I would say that brings us to the almost the end of today's discussion. And so if you could help understand some of the success stories, and especially from your client perspective, like what are the key challenges that they face in their day-to-day life when it comes to gut microbiome, and how exactly you help them address those challenges. That would be interesting to learn some of the new use cases from there.
Yeah, so I mean, I think cases are many, but one, like for example, we help people who've had, most of the cases that we work with are people who've probably been looking for answers for a very, very long time, say 20 years, 30 years, long time, and they've not been able to kind of see a difference yet, which is constructive. So we had this person who had irritable bowel syndrome, which is chronic constipation for years together, been on all kinds of medication from Dufalax, this, that, Cremafin,
Yeah.
having laxatives every day. And technically, in that case, I think she had not stopped taking any form of this kind of a outside support for the last 20 years of her life. And she came to
Okay.
us saying that, she was having a lot of issues because she reached a point where her bowel tolerance was so bad that she was, in the sense, she was not able to even now go to motion with these, because the body had got used to all these options that she was taking. So instead of just looking at, okay, you know what, let's add another supplement, or let's just add magnesium citrate and that will help you go, we try to understand what was the root cause of her problem. And when we looked at the root cause of her problem, we recognized that she had, when she earlier in the many, she'd had multiple surgeries in the past. So there were multiple rounds of antibiotics, painkillers that had happened. And she'd also taken a lot of antacids with them. So there was a low stomach acid issue. So basically, her food was not digesting well. If she was eating at 2 o'clock, she was still keeping that food in her stomach or her small intestine till maybe about 5 o'clock. It was hardly even moving. So peristalsis was very slow. So that is why there was a whole shift in the transit time and by which the stool was actually leaving the body. So we actually corrected her stomach acid issue and also helped her to kind of improve the balance of her good bacteria, bad bacteria, worked on the lining, because over a period of time there was so much inflammation in the system that we worked on improving the gut lining. We improved these aspects, and we also gave her, with that, yes, we did give her magnesium. We did give her, remove the foods which she was eating, which she was probably intolerant to, which she'd not recognized. And this whole bag of working on various branched out tertiary aspects together made her eventually, over a 6-month period, gradually through slow movements of weaning off her medicines one at a time. Today, she's finally able to go to stool every day without any support, just with her food. So all these aspects were, married into each other, and we had to kind of intervene into each area separately and improve every aspect for her to be able to see an overall difference. And today, like, she feels free. She's not dependent on, when she goes out, she's not dependent on 5 medications which she can't go out without. We take these things, again, like I said, for granted. We don't realize that for so many people there's so many challenges. Like today, for a simple person, like for her, going out of the house without knowing, from here to Lonavala, also from Bombay to Lonavala, she'd have to think, okay, how many loos are there? I need to map them. What if I get a stool in between? So like those things we don't think. We take it for, a lot of people don't even realize that kind of. So she would have a lot of anxiety when she's taking a road trip, because she did not have that kind of. And today she can freely go wherever she wants without having to worry about that. So it's it's really changed her life in a very beautiful way.
Thank you so much, Janvi, for this insightful discussion. And I, in fact, learned a lot, I would say.
Right.
And I'm sure all the listeners are going to learn a lot from this particular session. And the way you've described and simplified a lot of biology and a lot of how exactly our gut is extremely important for us to function.
Yeah.
So one of the last things is, if you could please, for everyone, if you could please share how exactly people can reach out to you on Instagram or any other social media channel, that would be good.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anybody who's looking at any of these concerns or wants to learn more about gut health and is just inquisitive and they want to understand how they can work on it as well, even if they don't have any particular issue, can reach out to us. They can reach out to us on Instagram, which is @Janvi Chitalia official. And they can also reach out to us on our website, and they could that will also, they can leave a form for us, which is at www.janvichitalia.com. And they can also feel free to email us on guthealth@janvichitalia.com. So these are all the ways that you can reach out to us.
Thank you so much, Janvi. Great speaking with you, and
Thank you.
I look forward to hosting you again for another insightful session.
I would love to do that. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
I
so
really
much.
enjoyed myself. And it's always, I really like to thank Fit Aerobic for really doing this as an initiative to reach out to more people, to really, build a platform where we're looking at authentic information to be shared in the best way possible, and to try to really educate people who are willing to genuinely learn more about the real information that's out there. Thank you
Means
so
a lot.
much.
Thank you.
That's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Fitness Pro Chat by Fit Aerobic. We hope you had key takeaways from today's episode and learned something new. Don't forget to download and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and leave us a rating and review on your favorite platform. In the meantime, reach out to us on Instagram @FitAerobic or through our website, fitaerobic.com. And remember, failures will only make you strong and better learn. Take care, stay healthy, and live a fulfilling life with Fit Aerobic.